The words were weak, almost broken, and the battlefield around them was silent except for the wind blowing through the ruins. The human medic, a young man named Daniel, froze when he heard them. He didn't know if the alien was asking for medicine, a weapon, or something else entirely. But he could see the pain in its glowing eyes. Daniel had never been this close to one of them before. For years, the alien race had been the enemy. Soldiers fought them, governments feared them, and most humans only saw them as a threat. But lying on the stretcher, this alien did not look like a monster. It looked like someone's friend, someone's brother, someone's comrade who had been left behind. Daniel bent closer, trying to understand. "What do you need?" he whispered. The alien's hand, trembling and weak, pointed at the mud beside the stretcher. Buried there was a shard of metal, part of a human blade broken during the fight. With what little strength it had, the alien whispered again, "Please, put it in my hand." Daniel hesitated. Why? Why would this enemy want a human weapon? Then he remembered what he had heard from old reports. For the alien's kind, dying without holding a weapon was shameful. To them it meant leaving the world empty, without honor. Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't want to help an enemy. But as he looked into those eyes, he saw not an enemy, but a warrior who had fought, bled, and now was afraid of leaving without meaning. Slowly, Daniel bent down, picked up the shard, and placed it in the alien's palm. The alien closed its fingers around it. A look of peace spread over its face. For the first time since the war began, Daniel felt something strange. He felt close to someone who was supposed to be distant. In the days that followed, Daniel could not forget that moment. He worked with other medics, treated human soldiers, and moved on from battlefield to battlefield. But in his mind, he kept seeing the alien's face. He thought of the plea, of those simple words. "Please put it in." They echoed inside him, as if the alien had asked for more than just a weapon. It had asked for connection. It had asked to be remembered. Daniel felt sad because he realized something. He wanted to see that alien again. He wanted to talk, to understand, maybe even to help it live, but he didn't know how. The alien had been taken away after the battle, and Daniel didn't know if it survived. That sadness grew heavier each night. He sat alone by the dim lights of the camp, staring at the stars. The stars were the same ones the alien must have seen, too, and yet they felt so far apart. But humanity had always been strange, Daniel thought. Humans had a way of reaching across impossible distances. Humans had crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and even reached the moon. And now, on alien battlefields, maybe they could cross the distance between hearts too. One evening, Daniel made a choice. He began asking around quietly about the alien. He asked soldiers, medics, even prisoners of war. Most shrugged him off. Others warned him not to care about the enemy. But Daniel could not stop himself. He needed to know if that alien had survived. After weeks of searching, he heard a rumor. One alien warrior had been taken alive to a neutral hospital camp. Badly wounded, but alive. Daniel's heart pounded when he heard it. Could it be the same one? When Daniel finally reached the camp, he saw rows of cots filled with both humans and aliens. It was strange. Two species who had once fought now lay in the same room, united, only by their weakness. And then he saw him, the alien from the stretcher. Its eyes were dimmer now, its body thin, but it was breathing. Daniel stepped closer, nervous. He didn't know what to say. The alien opened its eyes, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. "I remember you," the alien said, its voice weak but steady. "You put it in my hand." Daniel's chest tightened. "I couldn't let you die without honor." The alien's lips curved in something that looked like a smile. "You are different. Your kind fights with more than weapons. You fight with heart." Days passed, and Daniel kept visiting. He brought water, small food portions, and even tried teaching a few human words. The alien, in turn, told him about its people, their traditions, and their fears. Slowly, a bridge was built, not of stone or steel, but of trust. Daniel still felt sad sometimes because he knew their worlds were far apart, and war still raged beyond the camp walls. But he also felt hope. Hope that this small connection could grow into something bigger. One night, as Daniel prepared to leave, the alien gripped his arm. Its strength was returning. "Human," it said softly. "You gave me more than a weapon. You gave me a reason to live." Daniel blinked, caught between relief and wonder. The alien looked at him, and with the same tone it had used on the battlefield, it whispered once again, "Please put it in. Not just a shard, but your spirit. Put it into my people. Show them what humanity is." Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded slowly. He didn't know how, but he would try. Humanity always tried, even when the path was impossible. And in that quiet, shared moment, two former enemies sat together. Not as strangers, not as threats, but as beings reaching across the distance. The war would not end overnight. The stars would not suddenly shine brighter. But for the first time, Daniel believed that peace was possible, not because of weapons, not because of victory, but because of humanity's simple power to connect. And so, the story that began on a battlefield ended where it had started, with the same words echoing in his heart. Daniel sat on his bunk long after lights out, staring at the empty space above him. The war camp was noisy during the day, but at night silence pressed against him like a heavy blanket. He should have been sleeping, yet his thoughts refused to rest. He kept remembering the alien's words. "Please put it in. Not just a shard, but your spirit. Put it into my people. Show them what humanity is." Those words had carved themselves into his heart. But now, days later, the alien was gone, taken away by its own kind after recovering enough to travel, and Daniel felt empty. He had not even learned the alien's name. He had wanted to ask, but there had never been enough time. The hospital camp had rules, and the alien had been moved, without warning. Now Daniel felt like a door had closed between them, leaving only silence. During the day, Daniel worked as usual. He treated wounded soldiers, cleaned instruments, and carried stretchers across the dirt. But his mind was far away. Every time he bandaged a human arm or checked a pulse, he thought of that alien warrior. He wondered, was it safe? Did it still remember him? Or had their short connection faded like smoke in the wind? The thought hurt more than he expected. It felt like losing a friend. And yet, he had barely known the warrior. How could someone, who was supposed to be an enemy, leave such a mark? At night, Daniel walked outside the camp. The stars shone cold and distant above. He wondered if the alien was looking at the same stars. Maybe, far away, the warrior also thought of him. Maybe not. He wished he could reach across the dark sky and speak. But he didn't know how. He felt small and powerless. The distance between them seemed endless, and still, he hoped. One evening, Daniel sat by the campfire with another medic named Sarah. She noticed how quiet he had become. "You're thinking too much again," she teased gently. Daniel gave a small smile. "Maybe. I keep thinking about someone I met." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "A soldier?" He hesitated, then said, "Not exactly. An alien." She blinked in surprise, then laughed softly. "Only you would say that like it's normal." Daniel sighed. It doesn't feel like it should be strange. On the stretcher, they weren't an enemy, just someone afraid of being forgotten. Sarah tilted her head. "And now you miss them?" He nodded. "I don't know why. I just want to reconnect, but I don't know how." Sarah poked at the fire with a stick. "Humans are stubborn. When we want to reach someone, we find a way. That's who we are. That's why we've survived so much." Her words sank deep into Daniel's chest. HFY. Humans are special, not because of weapons, not because of technology, but because of heart. Humans chased connections even across impossible distances. That night, Daniel made a decision. He couldn't sit in silence anymore. He began writing. At first, just a short note, then longer pages. He wrote about the battlefield, about his work, as a medic, about how he felt when he saw the aliens' eyes. He wrote about the stars, about the campfire, about the way humans laughed even in the darkest times. He didn't know if the alien would ever read his words, but writing was a way to keep the connection alive. He placed the letters in a small pouch, and every few days he added more. Weeks later, chance arrived. A peace envoy came to the camp. Neutral officers who worked between both sides, carrying messages and reports. Daniel gathered his courage and approached them. "I have something," he said, holding the pouch. "I don't know if it will reach the right person, but could you deliver it to the alien prisoners or wounded camps?" The envoy looked at him strangely but accepted. "We'll see what can be done." Daniel felt nervous as they left. He knew there was no guarantee. But hope flickered inside him, like a candle in the dark. Days stretched into weeks. Daniel almost gave up. He stopped expecting an answer. But then, one morning, a sealed envelope arrived at the camp with his name. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a piece of thin paper covered with careful writing. The letters were shaky, as if traced by someone learning the human alphabet. It said, "Daniel. I remember. I carry the shard still. I also carry your spirit. You gave me more than life. You gave me the wish to see your kind not as enemies but as something we could be. The distance is heavy, but I feel you across it. I look at the stars, and I think of the human who gave me honor. Your friend." Daniel's vision blurred as tears filled his eyes. The alien remembered. The distance was still there, but now there was a bridge across it. From then on, Daniel and the alien exchanged letters whenever the envoys passed through. The words were simple, but they carried weight. They spoke of hope, of fear, of questions about each other's people. Every letter reminded Daniel that connection was stronger than war, that humanity's gift was not only survival, but the courage to reach out even when separated by light years. And though the world around them still fought, Daniel felt lighter. He no longer stared at the stars with only sadness. Now he looked at them with hope. Because somewhere out there, an alien warrior was looking at the same stars, thinking of him, and in that shared thought, the distance between them felt smaller. Daniel closed his eyes one night and whispered into the darkness, "Please put it in. Not just weapons, not just shards, but the spirit of connection. Put it in our hearts until the distance between us disappears." And for the first time since the war began, he truly believed it could happen. Daniel sat at a wooden desk in the dim light of the medical tent. His hands hovered over the paper, pen shaking slightly. Outside, the wind blew through the camp, carrying the faint sound of soldiers talking and boots crunching in the dirt. But inside, it was only him and his thoughts. Another letter had arrived that morning. It was from the alien warrior, his friend. The words were short, careful, and uneven, but to Daniel they felt like a lifeline. "Daniel, I look at the stars again tonight. They shine the same on my world. When I see them, I think of you. The distance feels smaller then." Daniel had read the letter a dozen times. Each word made his chest ache in a way he couldn't explain. He wanted to answer, but no matter how hard he tried, he didn't know what to write. How do you write to someone who feels so close in your heart, yet so far in the universe? Daniel leaned back and stared at the ceiling of the tent. He felt the distance more sharply now than ever. His friend was alive, yes. They were writing to each other, yes. But he wanted more. He wanted to hear their voice, to see their eyes again, to know they were truly real and not just fading words on paper. That sadness weighed on him. At times, it felt easier to stop writing altogether, to let the distance swallow the connection. But every time that thought came, he remembered the stretcher, the glowing eyes, the plea. "Please put it in." No, he couldn't let go. Humanity wasn't built to give up. One night, Daniel sat with Sarah by the fire again. She had become his confidant, the only one he trusted with the truth about his letters. "You look heavy," Sarah said, handing him a tin cup of hot tea. Daniel sighed. I keep thinking about them. Writing helps, but it's not enough. I feel so far away, and I don't know if I'll ever see them again." Sarah studied him quietly. "Distance hurts, but maybe the distance isn't the enemy. Maybe it's the proof that you care." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She poked the fire with a stick. "Think about it. If the distance didn't matter, you wouldn't feel this way. The sadness means the connection is real. That's a human thing, Daniel. We hold on, even when the world tries to pull us apart." Her words struck him deeply. Yes, the distance hurt. But maybe that pain was the very thing that proved the connection was alive. So Daniel kept writing. He told the alien about his days, about the endless work, the sound of laughter in the camp, the warmth of the fire at night. He wrote about human things, music, stories, even the taste of bread fresh from an oven. Things the alien had never known, and in return, the alien wrote back. They described their people's great forests of crystal trees, their long traditions of honor, their fear of dying without meaning. They admitted their people had once believed humans were dangerous, cruel, and empty. But after meeting Daniel, they now wondered if humanity's true strength was not destruction, but connection. Every letter built a bridge across the silence. Still, Daniel longed for more. One evening he whispered into the night sky, "I wish you were here." It was strange, he thought. The alien had once been an enemy. Yet now Daniel missed them more than some of his fellow humans who were only a tent away. He realized then, connection was not about species, not about distance, not even about time. It was about heart, and humanity's heart was stubborn. Weeks later, the envoys returned with new letters. This time the alien's message was longer. "Daniel, I do not know when the war will end. My people are far, and yours are far. But I carry your words like fire in the dark. You once gave me honor, now you give me hope. You asked once what my name was. It is Kyle. You are the first human to know it." Daniel stared at the letter for a long time, his chest tightening. Kyle. The name felt powerful, like a key that unlocked the distance between them. For the first time, the alien was not just the warrior or the enemy. They were Kale, a friend with a name. Daniel pressed the letter to his chest. "Kyle," he whispered into the night, "I won't forget." From then on, Daniel's letters grew even more personal. He shared his childhood memories, his dreams, his fears. And Kyle did the same. They wrote about what they wanted for their people, what peace might look like, what it meant to trust someone from across the stars. Sometimes Daniel felt like Kale was sitting right beside him, even though they were light years apart. The sadness was still there, but it had changed. It no longer felt like an empty hole. Instead, it was a reminder, a sign of something real, something worth holding on to. One quiet night, Daniel wrote something he had never dared before. "Kyle, you once told me to put my spirit into your people. I don't know how to do that. But I know this, I will not stop writing. As long as we keep reaching across the silence, the distance will not win. That is what it means to be human. We don't give up. We keep walking forward, even when the road is long. Maybe one day I'll see you again. Until then, I will keep hope alive." He sealed the letter and handed it to the envoy the next morning. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Daniel still felt the ache of distance, but it no longer broke him. Instead, it pushed him forward. Because he knew Kyle was out there, also looking at the stars, also thinking of him. And in that truth, Daniel found strength. One evening, as the campfire burned low, Sarah asked, "Do you think you'll ever see them again?" Daniel smiled faintly. I don't know, but I believe, and that's enough. Because belief, hope, was the human spirit. Daniel lifted his eyes to the stars. Kyle, he whispered, please put it in. Not just the shard, not just the letters, but hope. Put it in our people, until distance is no longer stronger than the bonds we make. And somewhere, across the silence, an alien warrior named Kale looked at the same stars and whispered Daniel's name too. The distance remained, but hope was stronger. The winter wind swept through the camp, rattling the tents and carrying cold dust across the ground. Daniel wrapped his jacket tighter and rubbed his hands together for warmth. The fire burned low, crackling faintly, but it did little to ease the heaviness in his chest. It had been 3 months since the last letter from Kyle. At first, Daniel told himself the envoys were delayed. Then he thought maybe the letters had been lost. But now, with each passing day, doubt pressed harder against his heart. Was Kale still alive? Or had the distance finally swallowed their fragile connection? Daniel still carried Kale's last letter in his pocket. The paper was creased and worn from being unfolded so many times. It read, Daniel, I keep hope alive. One day, maybe we will stand in the same place again. Until then, the stars carry our words. Every time Daniel read it, he felt both comfort and pain. Comfort because it reminded him of Kale's voice. Pain because Kale was gone again, out of reach. It felt like watching someone you care about walk away into a storm, and no matter how loudly you called, they could not hear you. One evening, Sarah found Daniel sitting alone near the edge of camp. She sat beside him, pulling her blanket tighter. You're quiet again, she said softly. Daniel gave a tired smile. I'm always quiet these days. Still thinking about your alien friend? Daniel nodded slowly. It's like, I know they're out there, but I can't reach them. And it hurts, Sarah. It hurts because I don't want to lose that connection, but I don't know what to do. Sarah thought for a moment, then said, You don't need to know how, you just need to keep trying. That's the human way, isn't it? We reach out, even when we can't see the end. Daniel let her words sink. And yes, humans never gave up. Not on journeys, not on hope, not on each other. The next morning, Daniel began writing again. He wrote even though he had no envoy to carry the letters. He wrote even though he didn't know if Kyle would ever read them. Kale, I miss your words. I wonder if you are safe. I wonder if you still look at the stars. Sometimes the distance feels too heavy, but I keep writing because that's what humans do. We don't let silence win. Every night he added more pages. He wrote about the small details of life in camp, the way soldiers joked while cleaning weapons, the way frost covered the ground in silver, the way the firelight made shadows dance. He wanted Kale to know what it felt like to be human even in the quiet moments, and somehow writing eased the ache. Weeks later, an envoy finally returned. Daniel rushed forward, handing over the pouch of letters. His hand shook as he asked, Do you have anything back? The envoy frowned, flipping through his bag. No letters for you this time. I'm sorry. Daniel's heart sank. He forced a nod, but inside disappointment spread like cold water. Still, he kept writing. One night, while staring at the stars, Daniel whispered Kale's name. The sky was vast and endless, but he spoke anyway. Kale, if you can't hear me, I'll still speak. If you can't answer, I'll still write because humanity doesn't stop trying. The words felt small against the universe, but they were real. And that gave Daniel strength. Another month passed. Then at last, a thin envelope arrived with his name scratched across it. Daniel tore it open with trembling hands. Inside, the words were messy, but powerful. Daniel, I am alive. The war moves me far away. Sometimes we are not allowed to send letters, but I read yours. All of them. They are fire to me in the cold. You think the distance is heavy. It is. But because of you, I believe I can carry it. I look at the stars and I know you are there. Your people's spirit is strange. You never stop, you never let go. I try to be like that too. Daniel closed his eyes as relief washed over him. Kyle was alive. The distance had not won. From then on, their letters became rarer, but each one carried more meaning. Daniel realized something. Even if months passed, without word, the connection still lived, because hope itself was part of the bond. And in that, Daniel saw the truth of humanity. Humans built bridges where none existed. Humans wrote letters into silence, spoke words into the void, and kept walking forward even when the path was invisible. That was their strength. One night, Daniel shared this thought with Sarah. "Do you know what makes us human?" he asked. She smiled. "You're about to tell me." Daniel looked at the firelight flickering between them. "It's not just our strength or our tools, or even our courage. It's our refusal to let go. We reach across distance. We hold on to people even when they're far away. That's what Kale sees in us. That's what gives me hope." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then maybe that's what will change everything." As Daniel drifted to sleep that night, he thought of Kale. He thought of the stretcher, of the shard, of the first desperate plea, "Please put it in." And he realized something new. It was not just about giving a weapon or even giving hope. It was about putting humanity itself into the universe, our stubborn will, our endless reaching, our belief that distance is never stronger than connection. Daniel smiled faintly in the dark. "Kyle," he whispered, "one day we will meet again. Until then, I'll keep writing. Because that's what it means to be human. We never stop trying." And under the vast, star-filled sky, his words carried across the silence as if the universe itself was listening. The days blended together in the camp. The war had not ended, though battles were less frequent now. Rumors of peace talks drifted through the tents like smoke, but no one believed them fully. Daniel continued his work, bandaging wounds, carrying stretchers, whispering comfort to soldiers who cried out in pain. His hands moved out of habit, but his mind was often far away with Kale. It had been almost half a year since their first exchange of letters. The messages came less often now, separated by long stretches of silence. Each one that did arrive was treasured like a gift, proof that the distance could not erase what had begun between them. But in the quiet nights, when no letters came, the sadness returned. Daniel would stare at the stars and wonder, does Kyle think of me still, or has time washed me away? One evening, Daniel sat alone by the fire. Sarah approached, holding 2 cups of tea. She handed one to him and sat down. "You're carrying something heavy again," she said gently. Daniel gave a tired smile. "When am I not?" She nudged him playfully. "Tell me." Daniel sighed. "I keep thinking about Kyle. I miss them more than I can explain. But sometimes I feel powerless, like I can't do anything to change the distance, like I'm waiting for a door to open that never will." Sarah studied him for a moment. "Distance is hard, but you've already done more than most. You reached across it once, you can do it again." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "How?" She shrugged. "I don't know, but humans always find a way. That's what makes us human." Her words echoed in him long after she left. Humans always find a way. The next day, Daniel walked to the edge of camp where the communication towers stood. They were tall, rusted structures, used to send coded signals across the battlefield. Normally, they carried orders or reports, nothing personal. But as Daniel looked up at the blinking lights, a thought formed. What if I could send something different? He spoke with the operator, an older man named Briggs. "Is it possible to send a personal message? Something not official?" Briggs frowned. "Not supposed to. These towers are for the war effort." Daniel hesitated, then said, "What if the message could help end the war?" Briggs studied him, then chuckled. "You're serious, aren't you? You really think a single message could do that?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Not one message, but maybe one connection, one spark. Isn't that how peace begins? Briggs scratched his beard. You've got a strange kind of hope, medic, but maybe that's what this war needs. It took weeks, but Briggs finally agreed to try. He showed Daniel how to encode a short signal. No long letters, just a few words. Daniel thought hard about what to say. Finally, he sent Cale. The stars are still the same. I have not stopped thinking of you, Daniel. The signal vanished into the static of the airwaves. Daniel didn't know if it would reach Cale or if Cale would even recognize it. But he felt lighter, as if speaking into the distance was enough. Days passed. No reply came. Daniel tried not to lose hope, but the silence pressed on him like stone. Then, one cold night, Briggs ran into the medical tent holding a strip of paper. His eyes were wide. Medic, you got something back. Daniel snatched the paper, heart racing. The words were simple, but they filled him with warmth. Daniel, I hear you. The stars are the same. You have not been forgotten. Cale. Daniel closed his eyes, tears stinging. Across all the silence, across all the war, Cale had reached back. After that, they found ways to send short signals through the towers. It wasn't often, only a few words each month. But it was enough. Each message carried weight, still alive, still hoping. I look at the stars tonight. Your spirit keeps me walking. Daniel felt the distance, yes, but he no longer felt powerless. Humanity's gift was not in erasing distance, but in enduring it. One evening, Daniel told Sarah, "You were right. Humans always find a way. Even when it's impossible, we make something possible." She smiled softly. That's HFY, Daniel. That's who we are. Daniel nodded. And Cale sees it. That's what matters most. Months passed. Peace talks grew stronger. Soldiers whispered that the war might finally end. Daniel prayed it was true. Because if peace came, maybe, just maybe, the distance between him and Cale could finally close. But even if it didn't, Daniel knew something now. He knew that humanity's strength was not in weapons or victories. It was in stubborn hope. In the courage to keep reaching out, even when no hand was guaranteed to reach back. And because of that, Daniel would never stop trying. That night, as the stars shone above, Daniel whispered once more into the dark, "Cale, please put it in. Not just the messages, not just the words, but hope itself. But hope, put it in the hearts of both our people, so that one day the distance will no longer win." And somewhere, far away, Cale whispered Daniel's name into the same stars. The distance was heavy. Yes, but hope was heavier still. The war was changing. Everyone felt it. The gunfire was less frequent, the skies quieter. Soldiers still trained and marched, but there was a strange unease in their movements. Some whispered, "It's ending." Others said, "It will never end." Daniel worked as he always did, tending to wounds and lifting broken bodies from the ground. But each day, he felt the heaviness of waiting. Waiting not just for peace, but for something more personal. Waiting to see Cale again. The short messages through the tower kept him alive. A few words here and there, signals that crossed the silence. They were like sparks in the dark, proof that Cale had not forgotten. But sparks were not enough. Daniel longed for fire. One evening, after a long day in the medical tent, Daniel walked outside and looked at the stars. They had always been his comfort. But tonight they felt almost cruel. Each one seemed to whisper, "Far, too far." Sarah joined him. She carried no tea this time, only her quiet presence. "You're thinking about Cale again," she said. Daniel didn't answer at first. Then he nodded. "It's like there's a wall between us. I can send words through the cracks, but I can't step through myself. I want to see them, Sarah. I want to stand in front of them and say everything I've never said." Sarah sighed. "That's the hardest part of distance. You feel powerless, but you're not." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "Humans don't wait forever. When something matters enough, we cross oceans, deserts, even battlefields. You'll find a way. You always do. Her words lit something inside him, a small, stubborn flame. Weeks passed. One morning, Briggs called Daniel over at the tower. He held another strip of paper with Cale's words. Daniel, my people speak of peace. They consider a meeting. I do not know if I will be chosen to go, but if I am, will you be there? Daniel's hands shook. For the first time, the distance might close, not with silence, but with faces, voices, hands. He wrote back, yes. If peace talks happen, I will find a way to be there. I promise. The waiting was worse now. Each rumor of negotiations made Daniel's chest tighten. Each delay was like a stone on his heart. He still worked, still healed others, but his thoughts always circled back to Cale. What if the talks fail? What if Cale is not chosen? What if we never meet again? At night, Daniel's hope fought against fear. Hope said humans always find a way. Fear whispered, but maybe not this time. Finally, word arrived. There would be a peace summit, hosted in the ruins of a neutral city. Representatives from both sides would attend. Daniel begged his commander to let him join the medical team sent to support the summit. If anything happens, they'll need medics, he argued. The commander studied him. You're determined, aren't you? Very well. But this is not about your personal connections, remember that. Daniel saluted. Understood. But in his heart, he carried a different promise. Kyle, I'm coming. The journey to the city was long. The ruins rose like broken teeth against the horizon, buildings scarred by years of war. But in the center, a hall had been cleared, decorated not with flags of victory but with white cloths of truce. Daniel stood among other medics, his hands ready, his eyes scanning the crowd. Soldiers, diplomats, and alien envoys filled the hall. And then he saw them. Kyle. Their posture was straight, but Daniel could see the limp in their step, the scar along their arm. Their eyes searched the room until they found his. In that instant, the distance vanished. They could not rush to each other. The summit demanded order, respect. But Daniel felt Cale's gaze like a hand against his heart. The talks began. Words of peace filled the hall, hesitant, careful, fragile. Daniel barely heard them. He only heard the unspoken conversation between his eyes and Kyle's. I found you. I kept my promise. When a break finally came, Daniel moved quickly. He approached Kyle slowly, mindful of the many watching eyes. Kyle spoke first, their voice soft but steady. Daniel, you came. Daniel smiled, his throat tight. Of course, I told you I'd find a way. Cale's scarred hand trembled, then reached out. Daniel didn't hesitate. He clasped it tightly as if anchoring himself to the moment. For a heartbeat, the hall fell away. There was no war, no walls, no distance. Only two souls who had carried hope across impossible space. That night, Daniel wrote in his small journal, his words simple but true. Humanity's strength is not in our weapons or our victories. It is in our refusal to let distance win. When we care, we reach across the impossible. We hold on. And in that holding, we create hope, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. The next morning, as peace talks continued, Daniel caught Cale's eyes again. He thought of all the nights he had stared at the stars, wishing. Now Cale was here. Not a wish, not a spark, a flame. The distance had been long. The sadness had been heavy. But humanity's hope had carried him through. And when Cale squeezed his hand once more, Daniel knew the journey wasn't over. It was only beginning.